Hi there, I'm David Henderson and I'm going to talk to you about the maintenance of bass and tenor drums today. So, first of all, when you're changing your tenor drum head, when it comes time to change it, you want to be using two keys. I find it's much easier to use two drum keys so that you're putting the same tension or release on the points that you're tuning with each key, rather than trying to identify if you're doing it correctly, if you're doing it evenly when you're using one. So what to do first of all is you want to start with what's called diametric tuning, and you're going to go from one side to the other with both keys, turning them at the same time. Now, because there's not as much tension on a tenor or a bass drum as a snare drum, you can't afford to take it down, take the tension off a bit quicker than you do in a snare drum. So we'll go around this and take off the tension. Now once it gets to that point of being loose, you can actually use your fingers just to do the last section, which is a wee bit easier, and loosen off the lugs completely. Now, for this particular style of tenor drum, you don't want to take the lugs off totally or they'll end up falling out of the down tube. Okay, so only loosen it enough to be able to take the hook off of the rim of the drum. Okay, and it will just fall to the back. Like that. Okay, now your top head is released and the hoop is released as well, and these will separate and come apart either together if you want to hold them together, or you can take them off one at a time. So at this point it's important to make sure that you've got all the tools that you're going to need to change the head, retune the head to itself, or the drum to itself, and then tune the drum to whatever your pipe section is sitting at on the tuner. So you want to have your two keys, obviously, as we've already used, your tension watch or drum dial, which is going to make sure that the drum's in tune with itself, and making sure all the points, the tension at each point is exactly the same on both the top and the bottom heads. Obviously your tenor stick to strike the drum, and your tuner. Now I use the Sol bass and tenor tuner. There are loads of these available. You can use apps on iPhones or whatever brand of phone you have. I think there's some separate devices as well, also by, I think Peterson make a different tuner as well. So any bagpipe tuner usually will have an equivalent for the bass and tenor, or you can use that actual tuner as well. But it's important to make sure you have a tuner available. So once you've got the head and the hoop released, take the hoop off and the head, and then at this point you'll replace the head on the top of the drum with whatever one you're going to put back on. I'm just going to put the same head back on, and you want to make sure that your logo is going to sit directly opposite wherever your hook on the rim of the drum sits, so that you've got that nice and symmetrical across your drum core. Okay, so then the hoop goes back on top like this. It's also important to make sure that you do one head at a time. You don't want to loosen off the top head and then lift it up and loosen the bottom head, and then the whole drum falls apart. One at a time. Okay, and then again with this particular brand of drum, you just lift the lug back up to the hoop and just sit it on, give it a wee push, and it'll stay in place. On some other brands, you have to take the lugs completely off and then reposition the tension rod in the down tube again. It's the same principle, this type of drum enables it to stay in place. Okay. Okay, now your hoop is secure on the top of the head, and you're going to start tensioning the top head. Now, at the beginning, same as the way we did in the last section when we took the head off, you're just going to put some finger tension, what we call finger tension, onto the rods, like this, just to make sure it's in place, okay, and keep it secure. You're not actually tensioning the head or tuning the head at the moment, all right? And you can turn the drum and go round like this. Just to make sure these are all in place. There we go. Okay, now that you know this is going to stay in place now, you can now turn the drum upside down and change your bottom head. Okay, you would do exactly the same thing as what I've done in the top on the bottom to make sure that both heads are going to be exactly in tune with each other and give you a nice resonant tone that's consistent. Okay, I'm not going to do the bottom because it's exactly the same as the top. All right, so back to the top head. That's you changed both of your heads on top and bottom, and both sets of tension rods are just going to be finger tight. Okay. So now we want to try and get the drum in tune with itself, and this is what we use the tension watch or drum dial for at this point, okay? So we'll go back to the drum keys now, and we'll do this diametric tuning, which just means opposites, okay? So if it's a wee bit loose still, when you put your key in like that, don't be afraid to give it a wee turn. You'll be able to feel resistance once the head is starting to actually put some tension on, okay? Just a small turn again, just to make it even more secure. Okay. So at this point, what I do at this point is use the tension watch to give me the overall, or a kind of even number of what each tension point is at, a kind of general number. And it doesn't matter on the tension watch what number each point is sitting at, as long as it's consistent at this point, okay? So if I sit it in the middle, that'll give me a number. You can see that's sitting at about 72 on the tension watch there. And that is a kind of general point of what each lug is sitting at. And what I do at this point is then go round each individual tension lug, and that'll give me exactly where each lug is sitting at, and try and even it all out to the number that you got from the centre, 72 in this case. Okay, again, don't worry if you're up in the 80s or below 70, it doesn't matter what it's at. Again, this point you're just making sure it's even. It's nothing to do with the pitch that the drum's going to be at or the note that it's going to give you, okay? So this one is quite a bit lower. You want to make sure as well when you're doing this that you're probably about 1 inch to 2 inches away from the hoop at the side, and that's because the bearing edge can give you a false reading. The bearing edge is where the head sits, or the part of the drum that the head sits on that bears the head. It's given its name, and you want to make sure that you're not sitting the needle on that bearing edge, or that will give you a false number. Okay, so just off so that it's in the kind of the gap between the two heads, if you like. So that's down at below 70, so I want to give that a wee tweak just now. And then don't remeasure until you go round the full drum, because what can happen is when you pull here, you're taking tension off of this side, so it's kind of pulling down on that side but lifting up here. So if you take that right down, this is going to come right up and you can end up warping your head. That's why we do the diametric tuning. Okay, so I'll go over here. And this is sitting at just over 70, you can see in the tension watch there. So I'm going to take that up a tiny wee bit as well, but not as much as that one. Okay. And we'll go back over here. Same thing. And this can take a while to get right. As I said, it's moving all the time, so as you pull one side, the other side's changing, so you might have to go round the drum a few times till you get every single lug sitting at the same number, okay? Okay, so that's me being round all the lugs, so now I'll just go round the drum and it'll give me an idea where they're sitting. So this is at 70. That is just below 70, so it's not far away at all. Same there, same there, and same there. Don't worry if the needle is slightly between one of the points and the next point, so between 70 and 71. That doesn't really matter, and that you can change that with some other techniques that I'll show you in a second. So I'm just going to adjust. There was one sitting a wee bit away from the others, which is that one, which is a wee bit below 70. So bring that up a section. Okay. Now, if you keep going round the drum, you'll see sometimes it will change, and that's because you've put some pressure on, and then over time, or the time it takes to go round the rest of the lugs, that can relax a wee bit in that space of time. So you want to go round and make sure that it's all at a point it's going to stay at. Okay. So again, that's dropped a bit below 70 on this side. We'll just bring that back up a wee bit. And I'll do this in a bit of a fast forward mode here. You're just doing the same thing round the whole drum until you get it sitting at the same point. So now we've got it sitting at 70. We're now going to try and aim for that number that we had in the centre, which was 72. Okay. That's fine. Okay, we're there or thereabouts. So you just keep going round until you hit that number that you've got from the centre of the drum. And then again, as I said, that means the drum's in tune with itself. And then again, as I've done on the top head, you would do exactly the same thing on the bottom head. I'm going to give this a wee check here, just to make sure. So first of all, in the centre, sitting at just above 72, so it's not far away from the top head. And again, you want to try and put it exactly the same number that you had your top head at, or vice versa if you've started with your bottom head. Because both are exactly the same, it doesn't matter what one you start with. Okay. Bring the key in here. So, come down a bit above. Okay. Get this one on. There we go. Okay, not far away at all. So, I said before that there's some other techniques that you can use to make sure that the head is sitting comfortably in the drum itself, on the bearing edge. One technique that we use to make sure that the head's nice and flexible and nice and relaxed in the head is pushing down on the centre of the head. Okay, and what that does, as you'll hear, if you can hear that, it presses some of the air out, but it loosens the head slightly so that you're not going to get any surprises when the head does loosen itself and you've already done that point. So what it is basically helping to fast forward what's going to happen to your drum when you leave it after you've tuned it. And what we'll do at that point is just give it another wee test to make sure that we've not knocked anything out. 72. And 72. So, okay, at this point, your drum's in tune with itself. Now, it's probably not going to sound very good at this point. As you can hear, it doesn't. So what we want to do now is start tuning the drum to the note that you want that drum to sit at. Now in this case, this is a 16-inch tenor drum, and this is going to be tuned to E on the pipe chanter. So this is where you're going to take your tuner, whatever tuner you have, and start tuning the drum to the note that you want to set it at. Now on this tuner, this gives you what we call the 4/8 number a lot of the time when we're tuning pipe bands, and what that means is your reading's going to be within 480 to 485, 86. A good starting point is 480. You're not going to be far away. If you set all your drums to 480, that's going to be roughly where the pipes are sitting. There'll maybe be 1 or 2 hertz up and down from that, but that's a good starting point. So I'm going to make sure that I've got 480 set on my tuner here. Some tuners give you the hertz that the drum is sitting at that point, so it doesn't actually let you select what range you want it to sit at. That's fine. Just make sure that when you're tuning the drum, you're aiming for 480, and then obviously you can take it from there as to your fine tuning where that has to go. So 480. Now, if I'm right, this should be sitting a lot flatter than 480. Okay, so you can see here, that's telling me that I'm way flat. Okay, it's telling me that I'm down below at the bottom here, flat. That's the red one. Okay, so what I want to be doing is tensioning the drum, putting some more tension on the drum to try and bring that light up to the green. Okay, and also for it to give me a reading on E. Okay, which is what I'm looking for. I think there was sitting at the F below where I'm looking at just now. So it's quite far away. So when it comes to tension, putting more tension on your drum, this is the point where you need to be really accurate, because now you're starting to put tension on the drum that can affect the parts of the drum itself. So it can start warping the head if you don't tune it properly, or warping the hoop, sorry. And what that does is over time it can help, it can give you false readings on your tension watch down the line if you're trying to see what points are accurate and this side's sitting up higher than that side. This is going to give you a different reading from here, but it could still be at the right tension. Okay, so you want to make sure that you don't do things that are going to hamper the drum itself. Okay, so make sure that you've got both your keys on either side and you're turning tensioning, so you're turning to the right hand side. That's applying tension clockwise, and you want to make sure that you do the same amount on each key. Okay, so if I do what we call about 1/8 of a turn, full turn, so about there on both, and at the moment when you're just starting off, do them separately. Don't try and turn them both at the same time, or you can go further with one than the other. So about here and about there. Okay, and just take your time with it. There's no rush at this point. Okay. Now this isn't going to take that, I know from experience that this is not going to take the drum to where I need it to be in terms of pitch, but I'm just showing you the process at the moment. So that's me done one full turn round the top. Important to do exactly the same thing on the bottom. Some drums, it depends what drum you're tuning. If you're tuning a high A drum, which would be a 14-inch, then you're probably going to have a clear head on the bottom. And what you want to do for that is exactly the same as what you do on the top head, okay? Just making sure that you have the right dampening in that clear head on the bottom. We can go into that later on. Okay. Okay, so I've done the same on the bottom as I did on the top. Now I know this is still going to be away from the pitch that we're looking for, but I'll just show you where it's gone to. So you can hear it's come up. We're now at the A below where we want to be. Okay, so we still need to put some more tension on to get up to where that E is. And again, I'll just do it fast forward mode now, since it's exactly the same as what you did before. Okay. Check. Okay, so we're now at the C below where we want to be. Okay, so we're not far away, we're getting towards that E, C. We have D or C sharp, D, and then E. Okay. So a wee bit more. At this point, when you're fine tuning, I'll revert to one key here at this point. That's just for ease of tuning. If you're more comfortable using the two keys, continue to use the two keys. Okay. Check. Okay, so we're now at the D, so we're very close. You can see that was hitting in the green light of the D there, which means it's bang on the D note. Okay, and we're looking for that exact same thing, but to give us a letter E. Okay. Okay. Check it again. Nearly there, D sharp. Taking a while. This should be the one. Now, as you edge closer to the note that you're looking for, you'll probably find that you overshoot in terms of trying to get that green light. That's common, and don't worry about that. You can take the tension off again once you've done it. Okay. Another check. Okay, so you can see, if you can see on the tuner there, that's sitting just above the E. So when you see the line come up, we're about 2 or 3 notches above where we want to be. Now, it looks like on the tuner that you're quite far away from that E note, but you're actually not. That's quite sensitive, the tuner, so you're not far away there at all. Now, at that point, what I would tend to do at this point is apply this press to the center of each head again. Because we're not far away, we're not far enough away to have to take tension off, but we just want the head to relax slightly. So if we give a press in the center, both heads, top and bottom, you can hear it relaxing there as well. This should help get that to the E. So now we've taken it down, that's taken it down quite a lot, so we're now able to apply a wee bit more tension, which is always better than having to take it off and put it back on again. Okay, so that's now down at the D sharp but close to the E. Okay, so a tiny bit of tension again, very small, less than 1/8 of a turn this time on each lug, because remember, 1/8 of a turn doesn't just mean 1/8, you're going around each lug on top and the bottom, so that's actually quite a lot of tension. Okay. Okay, let's see where we are now. Okay, there we go. Now, although that is 1 notch below the E, if you can see that there, I'll try it again. You can see already it's starting to jump up to that green light on the E, okay? And again, that's just as the head settles with itself. There we go, okay? So at this point, I'm going to leave the drum because it's very, very close to where I want the note to be, okay? And you can see it's already starting to actually hit the center of that E note, okay? At this point, your drum is in tune, okay? It's in tune with the number that you've selected if it's one of these tuners. And from there, you want to go around all your bass and tenor drums, if you're playing more than one bass drum, all the tenor drums certainly, and set them all to exactly the same principle you've just done on this drum to each drum, and set it to 480 on your tuner, and make sure they're in tune with themselves using the tension watch or drum dial, first of all, and then your tuner. And then once you've done that, your bass section will be in tune with themselves and also in tune with whatever number you've selected on your tuner, if it's 480 or if you know the pitch that the pipe core are setting at. Okay, that's about it. From there, it's just exactly the same principle across the other drums and you're good to go. Okay.